The city's skyline shines in the distance, bustling with activity as people move about. Amidst all the energy, there's a hotel standing tall, proud, and established. It's a place where guests expect comfort, luxury, and most importantly, respect. It's one of those hotels known for its high standards and smooth operations, where everything is meant to go perfectly. The manager, Mr. Harrison, is the one in charge. He's been working here for years and knows the hotel like the back of his hand. He walks through the lobby with a firm, no-nonsense attitude. His uniform is always crisp, and his face stern. He believes in following the rules, every single one of them. No exceptions. To the guests, he's polite but distant. He'll check them in, give them their key cards, and move on to the next task. But deep down, there's something about Mr. Harrison that doesn't sit quite right. He's always focused on appearances, on making sure things look perfect, on making sure people fit into his idea of what's proper. He doesn't show much warmth to guests, and certainly not to the staff, unless they're following his orders precisely. He has a reputation. People know him as someone who values order and appearances more than personal connections. For the most part, that's how the hotel runs. Neat, efficient, but a little cold. And it's worked for him. But that's about to change. The front doors of the hotel slide open with a soft whoosh, and in walks Mr. Cole. He's a well-dressed man, confidently stepping into the lobby with a suitcase in hand. His suit is sharp, his shoes polished, and his smile warm. He moves toward the front desk, where the receptionist greets him with a friendly nod. "Good evening, sir. How may I assist you?" the receptionist asks. "I have a reservation under the name Cole," he replies smoothly, handing over his ID. The receptionist checks the computer, scrolling through the system. A moment later, she confirms. "Yes, Mr. Cole, we've got your reservation right here. A 2-night stay in our deluxe suite." She smiles again, ready to hand him the key, but just as she reaches for the key cards, Mr. Harrison steps into view. He's watching the interaction from across the lobby, his eyes narrowing slightly as he observes Mr. Cole. He's immediately suspicious, though there's no clear reason why. Mr. Harrison's gaze lingers on Mr. Cole, and it's almost as if he's measuring him up. The warm smile on Mr. Cole's face doesn't change, but something in the air shifts. Mr. Harrison walks over, his footsteps firm on the polished floor. The receptionist hesitates, noticing the manager's attention, but she doesn't say anything. She knows better than to interrupt when Mr. Harrison is in charge. "Excuse me," Mr. Harrison says, his voice cold. "I'll handle this." The receptionist nods, stepping back. Mr. Cole looks up, surprised to see the manager approaching him directly. "Can I help you, sir?" Mr. Cole asks, still polite, unaware of the tension starting to build. Mr. Harrison stands tall in front of Mr. Cole, his posture rigid, his expression unreadable. He takes a moment, his eyes scanning Mr. Cole up and down, as if evaluating him. There's a slight frown on his face, a hint of discomfort in his gaze, though Mr. Cole doesn't notice this at first. "I'm afraid there's an issue with your booking," Mr. Harrison says, his tone businesslike but distant. Mr. Cole's eyebrows furrow. "An issue? I confirmed the reservation earlier today," he replies, trying to keep his voice calm. "Yes, but our system shows there might be a problem. I don't see your name under the available rooms," Mr. Harrison continues, glancing at the computer screen in front of the receptionist as if searching for an excuse. "But I have a confirmation email," Mr. Cole says, his voice still polite, but now tinged with confusion. "It says my reservation is set for tonight." Mr. Harrison doesn't respond immediately. Instead, he glances at the receptionist, who looks uncomfortable but doesn't speak up. "I'm sorry, but I'll have to double-check the system. It seems there's no room for you tonight," Mr. Harrison repeats, his voice still cold, as if the issue were beyond his control. Mr. Cole stands there for a moment, processing what's happening. He looks around the lobby briefly, noticing that the hotel is not nearly as full as Mr. Harrison implies. He'd seen plenty of empty chairs and unused counters. It doesn't add up. Is there any other way we can resolve this? Mr. Cole asks, trying to keep his voice steady. He's still trying to be understanding, though his patience is thinning. I've already confirmed everything with your team. Is there anyone else I can speak to? No need to bother anyone else. Mr. Harrison responds quickly. I'm in charge here, and the system is clear. We don't have any rooms available for you. Mr. Cole's frustration starts to show now. I don't understand, he says, his voice rising just slightly. I've traveled here for this reservation. Why can't you just check me in? Mr. Harrison remains firm, his gaze unyielding. I'm afraid you'll have to find somewhere else to stay tonight. There's a long pause. Mr. Cole, now confused and irritated, steps back slightly. He feels like something isn't right, but he doesn't want to assume just yet. Are you saying you're refusing to check me in? Mr. Cole asks, his voice colder now. Mr. Harrison doesn't flinch. That's exactly what I'm saying. Mr. Cole's patience finally snaps. He looks around the lobby, his frustration growing as he realizes he's being treated unfairly. His mind races. This doesn't make sense. The hotel isn't full. The reservation is confirmed. But here he is, being refused service without explanation. He takes a deep breath and decides to take action. I'm not leaving until I speak to someone higher up, he says firmly, looking Mr. Harrison directly in the eyes. Mr. Harrison's face doesn't change. He doesn't seem bothered by the request. In fact, there's a hint of disdain in his expression, as if he's in control of the situation, and Mr. Cole's request is a minor inconvenience. I'm the manager here. There's no one else to speak to. Mr. Harrison replies dismissively, his voice cold. But Mr. Cole isn't backing down. He knows something isn't right, and he's not going to be pushed out of the hotel just because Mr. Harrison doesn't want to do his job. I'm not going anywhere until I speak with someone else, he repeats, his voice gaining strength. The lobby is now becoming a bit more crowded, with a few guests noticing the interaction. They glance nervously but say nothing. Mr. Harrison notices their eyes on him, and the tension in the air becomes palpable. He begins to look slightly uncomfortable, but his stubbornness takes over. I don't have time for this, Mr. Harrison mutters, his gaze flickering toward the other staff members who have started to notice the escalating situation. Mr. Cole pulls out his phone, his fingers already dialing. He doesn't care if Mr. Harrison doesn't want to escalate this. He's doing it anyway. I'm calling corporate. I want to speak to someone who can fix this. Mr. Harrison glares at him but remains silent, his frustration growing as he watches Mr. Cole make the call. On the other end of the line, the corporate office picks up. Thank you for calling. How may I assist you today? A calm voice answers. Mr. Cole takes a deep breath. I'm at the hotel right now. I have a confirmed reservation, and the manager here is refusing to check me in. He's claiming there's no room for me, even though there are plenty of empty rooms. The person on the other end of the line listens intently, assuring Mr. Cole that they'll help resolve the situation. Mr. Harrison watches, his expression tightening, realizing that things are about to spiral out of his control. On the other end of the line, the corporate office responds quickly. Thank you for bringing this to our attention. Please hold while I transfer you to the appropriate person, the voice says, its tone professional but concerned. Mr. Cole stands there, phone pressed to his ear, watching Mr. Harrison's every move. The manager, now visibly uncomfortable, shifts his weight from one foot to the other. His eyes dart nervously around the lobby, his pride beginning to crack. He knows he's in the wrong, but he refuses to show it. Instead, he tries to keep his composure, glancing over at the receptionist who's doing her best to pretend she isn't listening to the conversation unfolding in front of her. A moment later, a new voice picks up on the other end. Hello, Mr. Cole. This is Sarah from the corporate office. How can I assist you today? Thank you for taking my call, Mr. Cole says, trying to keep his voice steady. I'm currently at the hotel, and I've been refused service by the manager here. I've made a reservation, and everything was confirmed. but the manager is telling me there's no room for me, despite the fact that the hotel is not full. Sarah listens carefully, asking Mr. Cole to describe the situation in detail. As he explains, she assures him that they take these matters seriously and that they'll resolve it immediately. Please stay on the line for just a moment. I'll speak with the hotel's management team and get back to you. Mr. Harrison, standing a few feet away, looks even more agitated now. He mutters under his breath, but Mr. Cole doesn't pay him any attention. All he wants is to have the issue resolved. Mr. Cole, I've spoken with the hotel management team. Sarah continues after a brief pause. I understand your frustration, and I want to personally apologize for the inconvenience. I'm also notifying our regional manager to head over immediately and handle this. I assure you that this will be addressed. Mr. Cole feels a weight lifted off his shoulders. Finally, someone is listening. He thanks Sarah and ends the call, turning to face Mr. Harrison. The manager is now standing still, his face tense, knowing that his actions have just gone under the microscope. The receptionist, who had been silent up until now, looks nervously at Mr. Harrison but says nothing. The minutes feel like hours as Mr. Cole waits, his patience barely hanging on. The lobby, once calm and quiet, is now filled with an uncomfortable energy. Guests glance over at the ongoing situation, but most stay silent, unsure of what's going on. Finally, the front doors of the hotel open with a soft chime, and in walks a woman dressed in a professional suit. She moves with confidence, her eyes immediately locking onto the scene in front of her. She's the regional manager, and she's here to resolve the situation. She approaches the front desk where Mr. Harrison is still standing, looking like a deer caught in the headlights. Mr. Cole turns his head slightly, relieved that help has arrived. Good evening. I'm Rachel Thompson, the regional manager, the woman says in a calm but firm tone. Her voice commands authority, and there's no question in anyone's mind that she's in charge. I've been informed about the issue. Mr. Cole, could you please tell me what happened? Mr. Cole nods, relieved to finally have someone to speak with who seems willing to listen. He explains everything again, detailing how he arrived, his reservation, and how Mr. Harrison had refused to check him in without any valid reason. Rachel listens intently, nodding occasionally. She looks over at Mr. Harrison, who's now standing still, his expression a mix of nervousness and defiance. He knows the situation is slipping out of his control. Mr. Harrison, Rachel says, turning her attention to the manager. Her tone is calm, but there's an edge to it. Can you explain why you've refused to check in Mr. Cole, despite his reservation? Mr. Harrison stammers, trying to maintain his composure. There's a system error. I thought the reservation was canceled, but... No, Mr. Harrison, Rachel interrupts. That's not good enough. We've confirmed the reservation, and you know it. So I'm asking you again. Why didn't you check him in? Mr. Harrison falls silent. His usual confident demeanor is nowhere to be found. He tries to speak but falters, unable to provide a valid explanation. Rachel turns back to Mr. Cole, her voice softening just a bit. I sincerely apologize for the way you've been treated, Mr. Cole. Your reservation is confirmed, and I'll make sure you're checked in immediately. Mr. Harrison stands frozen, realizing he's losing the battle. His eyes flicker from Rachel to Mr. Cole and back again. He knows he's in trouble. Rachel stands tall, her voice calm but firm as she addresses Mr. Harrison, who is now visibly shaking, his pride and composure slipping away. Mr. Harrison, she begins, her eyes never leaving his. Your actions today were completely unacceptable. As a representative of this company, you are expected to uphold our standards of professionalism and respect for all guests. Your behavior falls far below those standards. Mr. Harrison opens his mouth, but no words come out. He knows he's caught, and there's nothing he can say to explain or justify his actions. He tries to shift the blame, but it's too late. Rachel has already heard everything she needs to hear, and there's no escaping the consequences. You will be immediately placed on leave, pending an internal review of your conduct, Rachel continues. Her voice remains steady, but there's an undeniable finality in her words. As of now, you are no longer employed here. The words hit Mr. Harrison like a punch to the gut. He stumbles back, his mind racing. Wait, you can't do this. I've been with this hotel for years. You can't just fire me? Rachel's expression hardens. You're right, Mr. Harrison. I can, and I will. You have shown no respect for our guests, and you have violated the company's core values. We cannot allow this to continue. Mr. Harrison's face turns pale. He tries to steady himself, but the weight of the situation is too much. He's being escorted out by another hotel employee now, his presence no longer required. The guests in the lobby watch quietly, some exchanging looks of disbelief. Mr. Harrison has always been a fixture of the hotel, and seeing him go down like this is surreal. As he's led out of the building, Mr. Harrison casts one last defeated glance at Mr. Cole. There's no apology in his eyes, only anger and frustration. But it's clear he knows the situation is beyond his control now. Rachel turns back to Mr. Cole, who has been watching the entire exchange. Again, Mr. Cole, I apologize for the way you've been treated. I'll personally ensure that this issue is addressed within the company. Mr. Cole nods, feeling a sense of relief wash over him. He can't believe what just happened, but it feels like a small victory. At least he's been heard. With the manager now gone and the situation resolved, Mr. Cole feels a sense of calm return to the lobby. Rachel, the regional manager, steps forward, offering him a warm smile. I'll make sure you're settled in properly, she says. Your reservation is confirmed, and we'll take care of everything from here on out. Mr. Cole nods gratefully. He's still trying to process what just happened. The experience had been unsettling, but the fact that someone finally listened, someone actually stepped in to fix the problem, gives him hope. Rachel leads him to the front desk, where the receptionist, who had been quiet the whole time, now seems a bit more relaxed. Here's your key, Mr. Cole, the receptionist says, handing over the card with a polite smile. Thank you, Mr. Cole responds, still feeling a bit of disbelief. The receptionist smiles back, no longer nervous or avoiding eye contact. As Rachel shows him to the elevator, she reassures him again. You deserve to be treated with respect, and I'm so sorry this happened to you. It shouldn't have. I'll be making sure that all staff here understands how to handle situations like this in the future. Mr. Cole smiles, though it's clear that his mind is still on the earlier events. He enters the elevator, his shoulders a little less tense than before. The doors close, and for the first time that day, he can finally breathe a little easier. When the elevator reaches his floor and he steps out into the hallway, Mr. Cole pauses for a moment. He takes a deep breath, his frustration starting to fade away. At least the ordeal is over, and at least he can rest now. As he walks to his room, he reflects on what he's just gone through, the racism he encountered, the unfair treatment. But he also knows that it's been resolved. That, in itself, feels like a victory. As the evening progresses, the atmosphere in the hotel begins to shift. Word about the earlier incident begins to spread. Staff members quietly discuss what happened, whispering to one another as they go about their work. Some of the hotel employees are shocked. They had never seen Mr. Harrison act this way, and many of them feel uncomfortable that something like this could happen in a place that prided itself on high standards. Others feel angered by the unfair treatment Mr. Cole received. They can't believe the manager let his personal biases influence his work. I can't believe he would do that, one staff member murmurs to another. And right in front of guests, too. A few guests in the lobby overhear the conversation. Some shake their heads, disturbed by what happened. They'd noticed the tension earlier, but had no idea how bad things really were. The reputation of the hotel, built over the years, feels a little tarnished now. It's not just the staff who feel the effects. Word is getting around fast. But despite the whispers and shocked faces, the hotel continues its operations. The staff are reminded of the importance of fairness, and many of them express relief that Mr. Harrison is no longer in charge. They know things will improve from here.